Thank you for participating in this session, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to talk about public librarians as a driving force for the Sustainable Development Goals. My name is Jan Holmquist. I'm an educated librarian, been working in libraries for many years, and today I'm a self-employed consultant working mainly still with libraries and the Sustainable Development Goals, and I also work with making organizations better for humans, and I work with learning programs also about the Sustainable Development Goals and about all kinds of other stuff. Today I want to make a call for action, because with my knowledge of libraries, librarians, and communities, I know that librarians will be the perfect driving force for the Sustainable Development Goals. And I know that we can do it. We can reach our communities and make them have a real impact on the Sustainable Development Goals towards 2030. I will begin by telling you a little bit about what the Sustainable Development Goals are, and then I'll give a few examples on how libraries have been working with Sustainable Development Goals. I'll talk about librarians and the skill set that we have, and also the skill set that we need to do this. It is my hope that I will inspire you to go out there and work with Sustainable Development Goals in your communities. And I'll ask you a couple of questions in the end of the presentation that will lead you to think about what you can do next to work with the SDGs in your library and your community. Because to be able to reach the goals in 2030, we all need to work together. Nations, governments, local governments, businesses, institutions, libraries, librarians, and all humans of all ages. The Sustainable Development Goals are an ambitious plan, and we only have 8 years left to reach them, so let's get to work. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and they're divided into 169 sub-targets. The ambition is to empower all people, protect the planet, and actively support a prosperous life for all human beings. Furthermore, the vision is to create a world that is free of poverty, hunger, disease, and want, where all life can thrive, and a world that is free of fear and violence, a world with universal literacy, a world with equitable and universal access to quality education at all levels, a world with equitable and universal access to health care and social protection where physical, mental, and social well-being are assured, and a world where we reaffirm the commitments regarding the human right to safe drinking water and sanitation, and where there is improved hygiene and where food is sufficient, safe, affordable, and nutritious. A world where human habitats are safe, resilient, and sustainable, and where there is universal access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy. And a world of universal respect for human rights and human dignity, the rule of law, justice, equality, and non-discrimination, of respect for race, ethnicity, and cultural diversity, and of equal opportunity, permitting the full realization of human potential and contributing to shared prosperity. A world which invests in its children and in which every child grows up free from violence and exploitation, and a world in which every woman and girl enjoys full gender equality and all legal, social, and economic barriers to their empowerment have been removed. A world that is just, equitable, tolerant, open, and socially inclusive, a world in which the needs of the most vulnerable are met, and a world in which every country enjoys sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth and decent work for all. A world in which consumption and production patterns and use of all natural resources from air to land, from rivers, lakes, and aquifers to oceans and seas are sustainable. And a world in which democracy, good governance, and the rule of law, as well as an enabling environment at national and international levels, are essential for sustainable development, including sustained and inclusive economic growth, social development, environmental protection, and the eradication of poverty and hunger. A world in which development and the application of technology are climate sensitive, respect biodiversity, and are resilient. and a world in which humanity lives in harmony with nature and in which wildlife and other living species are protected. These are the visions behind the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and it was presented in the document Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, that was adopted by all United Nations members in New York City in USA in 2015. Well, because of the state of our planet, a lot of people focus mainly on the goals centered around climate action, and they are extremely important. But it's also important to understand that the goals are interconnected, that without ending poverty and without ending hunger, we will not be able to save the climate. So they are all interconnected, and it's very important to understand that. To get the word out there and to help our fellow human beings succeeding in having a real impact towards meeting the goals of the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN, we need to get the word out there. And some of the institutions that do that are, of course, our newspapers and our television stations, and they reach a lot of people. But another institution that is reaching a lot of people in the community and are meeting people, that's the libraries. Libraries are everywhere on the planet. It's like a global network of organizations, and they focus on learning, knowledge, and on culture. And like I said, they're in the heart of the community. So we just reach so many people. So if you think, well, why should libraries play a part here? It's because we meet the people. And even though global problems require global solutions, you can say that a local focus in every community that has a library, a local focus with a connection to the global knowledge and the global focus on the SDGs and actions in your local community, they will have a huge impact on what is going on a global level. Because the local actions in your community, in every community, adds up to the global level. So how are libraries working with the SDGs? Well, IFLA focuses on the Sustainable Development Goals. They focus on how libraries already contribute and how they can contribute more in the future. And a place where you can see some of the stories that they collect is on the IFLA library map, where they have where they're sharing a lot of stories from all over the world about what libraries are doing with working with the SDGs. But it's also on the IFLA agenda that IFLA and the libraries are contributing towards meeting the goals in 2030. On a national level, an example is that the Danish government are working with action plans towards what they are doing to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. And in the newest version of the action plan from the second half of 2021, the Danish government says that it will strengthen the library's work with and the dissemination of the World Goals to make the libraries a facilitator for the popular anchoring of the UN World Goals. The initiative involves, for instance, events on the World Goals in libraries, a World Goals certification program for libraries, and skills development for librarians regarding the dissemination of the World Goals. So the Danish government has given the libraries a role to play, and that means that every public library in Denmark is working with the Sustainable Development Goals. A project that is both on a national level in Denmark, but also on local levels, is the SDGs, Elderly Citizens and Libraries project. It's a 2-year project with a lot of money and external funding, and it intends to engage senior citizens in local communities around the Sustainable Development Goals. And the scope is to strengthen the well-being of the senior citizens by enabling them to contribute to make a meaningful difference in cooperation with other people. And it's a project that involves 30 Danish public libraries, so it's almost every third Danish public library system that will be involved in this project, and it's a quite interesting project. So It's arranged on a national level by the Danish Library Association, but it will have impact on a lot of libraries and a lot of people in the municipalities in Denmark as well. And if it is a success, the meaning is that you want to expand it to even more than the 30 participating libraries. So it will be interesting to follow that one. Another fine example of a national level project is the new library strategy for Scotland's public libraries. And of course, they measure up what they're doing towards their national performance outcomes, but they also measure up everything that they have in the strategy. They measure it up on the sustainable development goals. So it is a very interesting example of one of the newest public library strategies on a national level, and will definitely also be interesting to follow what they're doing in Scotland. By the way, it's always interesting to see what they're doing in Scotland. And it is the first example of a national public library strategy that I have seen where they're working so much with the global goals. But now let's zoom in to have a look at what they're doing in different library systems across the world. Projects at a local level in libraries. Well, a lot of libraries have community gardens where they teach people how to grow vegetables and herbs, and how you treat them, and you are there when you harvest them, and how you use them in the kitchen. So it's growing locally produced goods that you can use in the kitchen. So a lot of libraries are doing that. There's a good example from Doggen in Aarhus, where they have a special fund, and locals can apply for funds for sustainability projects that make a positive difference in Aarhus and Denmark, and they get the money for the fund from selling used books. I think that's a nice touch to that one, that the money goes into this fund. Some libraries host local sustainable development goals festivals for the community, where they show people how they can produce vegetarian food and other things that have an good impact on the environment. Other things you can find at the Sustainable Development Goals festivals are examples of projects done by members of the community where they work towards meeting the Sustainable Development Goals, and where they have an impact, and just basic info around the Sustainable Development Goals for the citizens. A lot of libraries have seed libraries where you can donate seeds from your garden, and other members of the community can pick up seeds for free. And another example is repair workshops, where you can bring in the stuff that you own that is broken, and some people there will help you to repair it. So we reduce waste and give things a longer life. A lot of libraries also host events that are relevant to some of these areas. Also about how you can repair things, how you can grow your own vegetables and stuff like that. But also a lot of other things that are relevant to meeting the Sustainable Development Goals in 2030. So most Danish libraries, I think, they will have a look at what they can host that will be relevant to that. Not all of the events, but some of the events. And a lot of people are doing this also on a global level. A lot of librarians are arranging it. A lot of libraries are doing this. And then libraries are highlighting stories from their communities about projects where people are working with the Sustainable Development Goals. And they're doing this to show people how they can contribute, but also to try to inspire people to get together. So they bring people together and facilitate the work that people are doing in the sustainability area. And then, of course, librarians and libraries are presenting information to the public and helping them to convert this information into learning about the Sustainable Development Goals, why they are important, how you can contribute. And libraries, they have always been about access to information and about transforming information into learning opportunities and then into knowledge. And libraries are working with this also when it comes to the Sustainable Development Goals. And all these projects are done by wonderful librarians. Librarians are making a huge difference already, but we need to do more. Librarians rock, and let's talk a little bit about what skills we have, what skills we need, and how we can move forward. What is a librarian? There are many definitions. In my opinion, a librarian is a connector of people, knowledge, learning, and communities. She's the friend and neighborhood hero, actively working to make communities smarter, one person at a time. She knows her community and can translate complicated information into new learning opportunities for the community. The librarian is the most important asset of any library. And libraries, they are cultural institutions and learning institutions, and they are the institutions that reach most people in our communities, and also the place where when people go there, they expect to learn something new. And this is vital if we think about how libraries can reach people, because people expect to be presented for new learning opportunities at the library, and the librarian has a key role to play. So if we look at the skill set that librarians have and combine it with the knowledge of the community that they also have, it becomes obvious that the librarian is the perfect driving force for supporting people to have real impact on meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. So, librarians need to have basic knowledge about the Sustainable Development Goals, and furthermore, we need to be able to translate the SDGs into tangible goals that are meaningful to the community. We also need skills to connect and support the citizens, to work together in interest groups towards meeting the Sustainable Development Goals with action that will have a real impact. In 7.5 years, it will be 2030, and we need to meet the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So it's not going to be easy. There is a long way to go, and that's why it is important that librarians play their part, and we can and we will. To do that, we must focus on the skills that we already have, and we must also be curious to see what skills we may lack and try to acquire those skills. Furthermore, we need to go out there and get started, try some things. And I've made up a few questions for you so that you can think about them both in the light of what skills you might need to acquire, but also to try to think outside the box on how you can begin to work with Sustainable Development Goals, or if you're already doing it, how you can do something different or something more. Who shall we partner up with, and what new skills do we need in order to work professionally with the Sustainable Development Goals? Can I combine knowledge from the different goals so we can make an impact on more than a few goals? How do we, as a library, reach people in our community who are not already interested in the Sustainable Development Goals, and in what way can we reach them? How do we inspire the community to work with us as partners on projects within the SDG framework? How can we make sure that we think outside the box regarding the Sustainable Development Goals and not just support the most prominent projects? I hope these questions will inspire you, and I hope that you were also inspired by the projects that I mentioned that libraries and librarians are already doing on both national levels and local levels around the world, and also that you were inspired about the visions behind the Sustainable Development Goals. I urge you to go out there and get started, or do even more than you're already doing with your work towards the Sustainable Development Goals. And please reach out. I'm glad to help. So here's my contact information. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you to the organizers of the conference for inviting me. Please stay in touch and let's discuss libraries and the Sustainable Development Goals. My name is Jan Holmquist. Thank you very much.